You're listening to the Piano Parent Podcast with Shelley Davis, episode 375. Hey there, and welcome to the Piano Parent Podcast. I'm Shelley Davis, a longtime piano teacher and parent with my husband of 4 mostly musical kids. As parents, we spend so much time trying to encourage and motivate our kids. We wonder if we're doing the best things for them. We second guess our decisions, and we worry if we're going to scar them for life. While you focus on encouraging your kids, I'm here to reassure and inspire you. I'll be here every week with practice tips, inspirational teacher interviews, and musical topics to help you impress your kids with your musical knowledge. Parenting is not for the faint of heart, but it's much easier with support, and you have come to the right place. Good morning, piano parents. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. You know, one thing I love about being involved in piano is whether you're a teacher or a parent, it's realizing that music lessons are about so much more than music. Of course, they're learning notes and rhythms and how to use the pedal and working with their hands and interpreting symbols on the page, but they're also learning how to become more independent, how to take responsibility, solve problems, and really own their learning. So on today's episode, I want to chat about 5 different ways piano helps our kids grow into more independent people, and what we as parents can do at home to support that. So we're going to start simple, and that has to do with giving them some responsibility. When our kids were first born, they relied on us for everything. I mean, they couldn't even walk for the first year or so of their lives, so we were not only picking out their clothes, we were having to physically put them in their clothes. We not only made sure they had something to eat, we had to put the food and the milk inside their body. They weren't even able to feed themselves. But as they've gotten a little older, we started giving them the spoon that they could hold on, or maybe a cracker they could chew on, and start to learn how to bring their hand to their face to get food in their body. As they've gotten older, then they have learned a little bit more responsibility. And some of the things that children need to gain a little more independence are not as obvious as feeding themselves. So, some things that we can help them start to gain more independence when they're, 7, 8, 10 years old. They can start doing some things around the house. Maybe they could put up their own laundry. Maybe they could choose their own clothes for the day. We'll talk about this a little bit more. You might want to set up the parameters about what they choose, but they can start making some of those decisions. They can take responsibility for wearing socks inside their shoes, not just their shoes with stinky, sweaty feet. Ugh. They can learn to pour their own cereal or maybe make their own sandwich. There's lots of gradual things that you can start to help your child do, even if it's messy, even if you have to go back and clean up after them for that, or teach them to help you clean the mess. They need to start making some of these choices with your guidance. As far as what this looks like in piano lessons, I might ask a student to take their books, rather than me just grabbing their lesson bag, their music bag. I might say, this is your music bag. You need to pull out the books that we're going to be using today. And they may pull out one book. Okay, that's the book. That's your lesson book. Let's also get out your piano planner that I write in, that you should be documenting your practice in. Let's get out your theory workbook. So I'll tell them specifically, keep going. We need these books. We need all of these. Let's get everything out all at one time. That way we have everything ready for your lesson, and then we can begin. Some students, I'm still pulling the books out of their bag, but my goal is to get them to be able to do that more independently. Maybe they can mark their music. I like to use sticky notes just as like a bookmark, and we write things in their planner, but then they also have the sticky notes. to help them find the pages a little bit more quickly. And we might write some different things on sticky notes. Play this 5 times every day, or whatever goal we might set with the student. And depending on their writing ability, I might let them choose to write that information on the sticky note. There's lots of different ways that we can start incorporating little responsibilities that can grow into bigger ones over time. And as I said, it doesn't have to be done perfect. Our goal is not perfection. Our goal is for them to start to learn how to take on a little more responsibility and start exercising their independence muscles. Another way that we can help them start gaining a little independence is to let them make their own choices. I mentioned that they can start getting their clothes on. They can start choosing their clothes, but maybe you set up some parameters about, okay, you can choose the red shirt or the blue shirt. We're not going to go out in green with purple polka dots unless it's a crazy day at school or whatever. You can set the boundaries, but within those boundaries that you know they can make a good choice that everyone can be happy with, they can decide. When my kids were younger, we got one of those closet, it was a fabric expander thing that we could connect to the rod in the top of the closet, and then it would open up to have all of these little cubbies. And so I don't remember if we did this for a very long time, but I do remember doing it and thinking it was a pretty good idea, where on Sunday night we would pick out and make sure we had clean clothes to get them through the next week, and put in socks and underwear and a top and a bottom to go in each cubby. They got to decide what they wore within what we had set up. They got to pick what to wear on Monday and Tuesday, but together we had gotten them set up for a successful week. Other choices that you could let your kid make would be, do you want to do your homework before dinner, or do you want to wait until after dinner? Probably, if your kid is like mine, the answer will always be after. I don't want to do anything now. Let's wait until after. So something that worked better for me is, do you want to do your homework, or do you want to help empty the dishwasher? Do you want to do your homework right now, or do you want to take out the trash right now? Somehow doing some other chore around the house made their homework a lot more appealing. And I still got them to take out the trash later, but we got their homework done, and they felt like they had complete control over the situation. As far as piano lessons, I might ask a piano kid, which song do you want to play first? Or do you want to take the repeat? You don't have to if you don't want to. You can decide. Sometimes I may say, let's try that again. There's a repeat sign here anyway. And then usually it's better the second time, and so that I can brag on, oh, did you notice that went so much more smoothly the second time? I hope you're playing repetitions when you practice this at home. In the early books, when children are just learning to read music, there might be a little piece that has a whole line for their right hand and a whole line for their left hand. And when they finally read and they've processed all of that information, which takes a lot of mental energy, and they've read the first line, I'll ask them, do you want to let your right hand play that line again? Does your right hand want another turn? Or do you want to go on and let your left hand have a turn? And it's kind of interesting to see the kid. Some of them are kind of mentally tired from doing all of that work. So let's just do what we know again and let that be a little more easy than to continue with that mental energy of learning and figuring out what the left hand needs to play. Of course, I'll guide them and they'll still have the other hand play, but I give them a little bit of ownership in making that decision. I also, whenever we set up an assignment, often I will give them a for sure song that will mark with a post-it note so they know this one is for sure. But since we've talked about all the stuff on these 2 pages, the next song on the next page has a lot of the same information. So on that sticky note, we're going to write the word bonus. And that just means that you get to decide if you want to practice that one or not. And if you do, awesome, wonderful, you've learned it all on your own. If you don't want to work on it, you're not going to get in trouble with me. We'll probably work on it together the next week. But it's so rewarding to see a kid take the information that we talked about on a given piece, their for sure song, and then they feel motivated to just see what they can do with the other song. And I always compliment them. Oh, I love it when students come to class having practiced more than their assignment. Way to go. Hey, piano parents. Quick heads up about something fun coming in March. If your piano kid loved Pianovember, this is the perfect next step. I'm excited to introduce March Piano Bingo, a simple, low-stress way to stay motivated and finish the year strong. Each bingo square includes short, kid-friendly practice activities, playing favorite pieces, sharing music with family, trying something new, and even a little technical exercise sprinkled in. Head to pianoparentpodcast.com/bingo and grab your bingo card. Let's make March a month of confident, consistent piano practice. So another way that we can help our kids practice that independence muscle and start to take some more ownership into their daily life and into their own piano lessons is to help them solve problems. I would even say help them recognize if there is a problem. We used to solve everything for them. We used to think of everything, especially I'm thinking about when they were a baby. Well, it may get cold outside. We need to bring an extra blanket. They may have an accident in their diaper, so we need to bring several extra changes of clothes. And yes, we have their one bottle, but we may need another bottle. So we need supplies. So we try to think of everything. But as they get a little older, then they need to start learning to think of things. If you decide to go out to the park, you know it's kind of cold outside, you feel the wind when you step outside the door, you grab a jacket. Maybe you tell your kid they should grab a jacket too. Maybe you just watch and you know it's not going to be terribly cold, but you let them decide if they want a jacket. My son, I think Austin was never very cold. So I would say, you may want a jacket. No, Mom, I'll be fine. And he was. So I had to learn to take him at his word. And if he didn't feel like he was going to need a jacket, then he would have to deal with the consequences if he got cold later. We'll be talking about consequences in the next little segment. But I would feel more comfortable to have a jacket if I need it. I can always take it off later. But he would feel comfortable. No, I'm not going to need a jacket. I'll be fine. And sometimes he was a little cold, but he acknowledged that was my choice. And okay, so wonderful. If maybe a mess is made at home, you might ask them, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to clean this up? Or what can we do to make sure we don't have this problem again? Do we need a bag or a box to put all of your Legos in so that they're not always scattered over the floor? What solution do you have that will solve this problem? If a child is sitting on my bench playing their song and they make a little hiccup, they stumble across a note, I don't always call attention to that. And it's been kind of funny in years past, if a parent has been in the parent chair back here behind me, parents feel responsible for their kids and they want me to know that they know that there was a little slip up. And so they would say, oh, you need to go fix that note. And I've had to train the parents, that's okay. We're not aiming for perfection. I'm aiming for them to be actively listening to their own playing and for them to recognize there was a mistake, not for them to react to you recognizing there was a mistake. And so if they maybe played a wrong note or they didn't notice the key signature or they're not holding the rhythm, the note values, the correct amount of time, I won't necessarily say anything because I'm hoping that they will discover that on their own. And when they do, I'll say something like, oh, good catch. You noticed that. You were paying attention. And if they don't notice it, then we'll go back and, of course, I'll help them fix it. But my goal is for them to notice. And sometimes they do notice so much that they can't keep going. And it's okay if you have a little slip up. You don't always go back and fix it. That's not music. Music is continuous sound in a pleasant manner. It's not making sure we go back and fix that note, because now you've got two mistakes. You had the original hiccup, but then you stopped to fix the hiccup. So now you've compounded our problems. I can see this happening, like even with homework. Has your kid ever called you from school and said, "Oh, today's recorder day and I forgot my recorder at home. Will you bring it to school for me?" Or, "I forgot my lunch. Will you have DoorDash send some lunch for me?" Or however children solve that issue these days. Um, you as a parent have to decide how you're going to help your child solve that problem. I hope that you will, help them occasionally. You don't want your child to be hungry all day. They're not going to pay attention to what the teacher's teaching them if they're paying attention to their rumbly stomach. But I hope that it doesn't become a habit, and that you will figure out a way. Look, we've got to figure out something so that you don't forget your lunch. I'm not going to be able to bring it to school every day. That needs to be part of your responsibility. Um, Whenever Tracy was first diagnosed with celiac disease, she was in kindergarten. And so we were both learning together what kind of foods she could eat, what kind of those foods she wanted to eat, because some of them didn't taste all that great. And then in kindergarten, every other week, somebody's having a birthday and bringing up cupcakes to share with the class. And it was just heartbreaking for her because she couldn't have any of the wheat products. So she and I went shopping one day. I got permission from her teacher to have a special box that would just stay in her classroom. And we went shopping and bought a lot of non perishable, prepackaged things, gluten free cookies, gluten free pretzels, and a bag of Fritos or potato chips, or just maybe even raisins, or just something that would be a special treat. Raisins aren't a special treat, but you understand what I'm saying. Something that would be a special treat that was only at school, only in that special box. We even decorated it with Little Mermaid stickers, and she and I together solved that problem. It still hurt a little that she had to miss out on some things, and that's something she still struggles with, but she knows that we are a team, and I'm not going to make her face some of those challenges alone, but I'm also trying to give her some ownership. Even to this day, I will tell her, if we're going to a family gathering, you are in charge. She's 23 years old, but she still lives at home and she's still learning. But you're in charge of making sure there will be something for you to eat at this family gathering. You can't expect your Aunt Frida, we don't have an Aunt Frida. You can't expect Aunt Frida to remember that you can't have regular macaroni and cheese. If you want macaroni and cheese, you have to be proactive. You have to solve that problem. I'll help you, but I need her to become more independent in this area. Okay, that's a little bit of a soapbox. So let's move on to the next one, and that is to let natural consequences happen. I mentioned Austin maybe not wanting to take a jacket, and either he was fine, or if he got cold, that's on you, buddy. You made that choice. And for poor Tracy, sometimes I would still sneak in a little snack so that she would have something. But there's a lot of times that she's just been hungry, or she's eaten only one thing. Maybe she could only eat green beans at the family gathering because there were scalloped potatoes instead of mashed potatoes, or and I keep hoping that one of these days she'll be a little more proactive for herself. Right now her solution is just to skip that meal. And if you saw how tiny she was, you would know that is not the best solution. So for you, with your child, if they forget their lunch at school and they call you from school, "Mom, I forgot my lunch. Will you bring something for me?" Maybe the first time you do that, but then the second time you have got to learn to take your own lunch. We packed it together. You had it sitting by your backpack. You're responsible. And because you didn't do that, you have to deal with the consequences. That consequence hopefully will help them learn and remember, "Oh yeah, I need to bring that with me." Sometimes in relation to piano lessons, maybe the week just gets away from you and your child hasn't practiced. And so Maybe you don't want them to face the consequences with their teacher of not being prepared. In my studio, I want to know if you haven't practiced, because that sort of tailors the way I'll address the lesson. Maybe we spend some time practicing together. We work through some tricky bits together. If you've had a rough week, then I can make it just an enjoyable experience where we're making music together. I'm not going to beat you up for not practicing. I'm not going to make you feel terrible about yourself, especially for a child when maybe the family was away on a trip that week. Of course they didn't practice. They needed to enjoy family time. If I know that, then I can customize the lesson. Skipping the lesson is not something that I want my students to do, especially if it's just been a regular week and we just forgot, we didn't get to the piano. Don't call me and say we're not coming because we didn't practice. We'll practice and come next week, because I have a feeling practice isn't going to happen this week either. But if you and I can get together and we can kind of give you a little boost, and remember, you can play this music, and that part of the song was a little hard, but now you've got some strategies of how you can play through it. Now spend some time practicing. You have some, what's the word? Strategies is really the best word. You have some ways of working through these problems. Let's also figure out, what days are you going to practice? You have a school play on Thursday? Don't even worry about Thursday, but make sure you get to the piano on Wednesday. Whatever that solution is, help your child figure out how to solve the problem, but then there are some times that they just have to face the natural consequences. Those natural consequences can be a powerful teacher. And you don't have to make a big deal out of it. You don't have to say, I told you so. I knew you would be cold because you didn't pack your jacket. And I hope you starve because you forgot your lunch again. It's not our job to crush our children, to crush their spirit. It's our job to help them learn independence. And they're still learning independence. And we are their guide. And we want to encourage them, help them figure out solutions. We don't want to beat them up when they fail. We don't want to get beat up when we fail. And that's my last point. Model self-reliance to your children. You've probably heard the saying, more is caught than taught. Your children are watching you. And if you forget your jacket, and then they might realize, oh, mom was shivering all day long because she forgot her jacket. I'm going to make sure I bring mine. My mom always carried a purse. And in her purse, she always had gum and fingernail clippers and aspirin and Band-Aids. And she just had this little collection of things that was always in her purse. Guess what I do? I always carry a purse. I've always got, well, I don't have Band-Aids right now, but I do have clippers and a lip balm and things that I might need when I'm out and about. My husband's mom never really carried a purse, and that worked for her, but I learned from my mom that that was something that was important. I think it's really good for you to be an example for your kid. If you're getting ready to go to the grocery store, let them see you make the list. Let them see you follow the list and not just buy all these extra things. Then they can learn some money management and self-control and all of that. Show them how you figure things out when you're stuck. They get stuck trying to figure out how to play a piece of music. Either they're listening to it and they can't figure out what that is, or they're trying to read the notation. If they get stuck, have they learned from you to just throw a fit and stomp off and say, I'll never do it. It's not, I didn't want to do that anyway. That was dumb. Or are they going to see you, oh, let me listen to that again. Let me try that again. And talk to your spouse. How would you solve this problem? And communicate. Oh, those are wonderful things for them to learn from you. When we have a challenge, we don't give up. We don't throw a fit. We figure out a different way to come to a solution. If they see you mess up, what a great thing for them to hear you say, oh, whoops, let me try that again. That was not the way to do it. I I think that's beautiful. I remember being with my grandmother one time, and I think some other company was coming over, and so she was real fast trying to clean the kitchen, and so she was wiping down the cabinets, but then she knocked over the salt shaker, so then she had to go clean that up again, and she said, "Slow down, Opal." Her name, of course, was Opal, and I didn't call her that. She was Mama to me, but I find myself when I'm trying to be in such a hurry that I'm making a bigger mess and taking more time. Slow down, Opal. Do it right. Do it carefully. Do it once, and then move on. I think it's kind of cool if you play an instrument, or if you're even learning to play an instrument, practice where your child can see you. Let them hear your mistakes. Let them see you fix them. Let them see you get a little frustrated when things don't go perfectly the very first time. I think that's such a powerful lesson. So here's the takeaway. Whether it's music or just daily routines, these moments where your child takes the lead or makes a choice or learns from a mistake, that is independence in action. We don't have to do anything fancy. We can just take a little step back, support them with some guided questions. Are you sure you don't want your jacket? And then watch the learning happen. I appreciate you so much for hanging out with me today. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you share it with a friend, or maybe share it with your child's teacher? That helps more families hear these helpful ideas. And if you want a printable version of today's tips, like a checklist that you could put on the fridge, I've got one ready for you. And just check the show notes at pianoparentpodcast.com/375. Until next time, keep cheering your child on, trust the process, and remember those everyday moments matter more than you think. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging around all the way to the end. If you haven't done so already, this would be a great time for you to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening through Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever your favorite podcast player is, hit subscribe so you will be the first to receive next week's episode. I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Piano Parent Podcast, and you could just email me, Shelly at pianoparentpodcast.com.